Hi everyone. I want to look at the shocker of the day in the Norway Chess tournament. And this game is between Levon Aronian with the white pieces and world champion Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces. D4, D5, C4, C6. Slav defense from Magnus. Knight of 3, Knight F6, Knight C3, and now we get E6, which is more moving into semi-Slav territory, as opposed to which would get us into our Slav proper, with the bishop coming out. So we are in a semi-Slav, the E6, E3, and A6. So we get this idea, which is related also to the Slav defense, where this A6 variation, I forgot the technical name for it, but this A6 variation was very popular a few years ago, and White was continuing a lot of games with C5, trying to prove that Black has weakened itself on the dark squares over here, and it's a very complicated games that usually arise from this position. There are many moves here after A6, and this is Magnus's kind of position where he uses his outstanding strategic abilities and endgame knowledge, and also middle game knowledge of structures to often outplay his opponents from drawerish and innocuous looking positions. So here, A6 is basically like a high class waiting move. Normally in the semi-Slav, you will see moves like knight bd7, but A6 is a high class waiting move, kind of um, seeing, trying to gain more information about White's setup and seeing what White is going to do here. So it's ultra flexible. There's all kind of ideas that can be played depending on what White wants to do. One of the main lines is B3, but all kind of moves are played here. B3, Queen C2 is played. I mentioned C5, Bishop D3, A4. There are many moves that White can choose from here, and depending on what White chooses, then Black will then lay his cards on the table. So this move is definitely super flexible, but of course Black has to be careful about the slowness of his play, right? A6 does nothing to contribute to development, and he must be careful about the weakness on these dark squares. Okay, some of the ideas included behind A6 are simple moves like, for instance, D takes C4, okay, and followed by moves like B5, hitting the bishop. Another idea, again, after D takes C4, is a move like C5 and then B5. Um, Another idea is after the move B3, this knight is weakened. So then the bishop comes out to B4. All right, and then sometimes A5 is played supporting the bishop. So there's a lot of rich strategic possibilities here in this position for both sides. So A6, there's bishop B3, and now you can see what I was saying. This knight is now vulnerable. Bishop B4, attacking the knight. Bishop D2, real simple way to protect the knight. Now Magnus plays knight bd7, bishop d3, castle, castles, queen e7, bishop to c2, rook d8, a3, and let me just mention that here the timestamp has GM Aronian at 1 hour and 22 minutes on the clock, and Magnus has 1 hour and 3 minutes. So this seems like good preparation by Aronian, and that he is well prepared in this line. He gives up the exchange here, and what happens is we can see by the ensuing play that Carlsen's queen ends up out of play in the corner of the board over here on the queen side, while Aronian attacks on the king side. So now Aronian immediately locks up the position. It's as if the queen has fell through a trap door, and now he can't get out. Alright, so while the queen is over here right after winning the exchange for this rook on a1, which wasn't doing anything anyway, white is able to generate play on the king side. So b6, right? Of course, he wants to tear that trap door open. And b4. And now, of course, there's problems because after queen takes b4, trying to escape, then you have knight d4, unleashing the bishop on d2 against the queen. So tactically, b4 works. Knight e4. Knight takes e4. Bishop takes e4. Okay. And we can see now, if you draw an imaginary line between the D and E files, you can see that all of Carlsen's pieces are on the queen side, and they're badly coordinated. All the pieces are like running into each other. So all of black's pieces are bad. And that's saying something when you're talking about the world champion here. So he moves the rook, and immediately you have the classic bishop sacrifice on h7. If any of you ever played the Kala system, you know about this sacrifice. Bishop takes h7, followed by knight g5 check, and queen h5, and then you get the checkmate. And this position has a lot of the symptoms that make that sacrifice sound in this position. The only thing is this knight is able to return to f8 or f6 to defend h7 if needed. Let's see what happens here. Knight takes h7 check. Excuse me, bishop takes h7, king takes h7, knight g5. The king goes back to g8. Now, if king g6, queen f3 seems very strong with this attack here. The idea being, if king takes g5, being greedy, then you have this discovered attack at the e4, right, unleashing the bishop. King g6, and then Carlsen drops the queen. So he goes to king g8 instead. This guy comes in, and of course there's a threat here and here. This knight saves black from absolute destruction. So even though he's able to defend the threat against the h7 square, this must fall. Queen takes f7. Let me just mention the timestamp again. Aronian had 44 minutes here, Carlsen 20. So we can see obviously that Aronian is well prepared, or just playing just comfortable in this position. But it just seems like he kind of prepared this idea and was ready to give up the exchange. And we can see Carlsen's queen just totally out of play, and his pieces coordinated. King goes to h8, and now the two rooks, again not being coordinated, get attacked. Bishop comes out, so everything looks all right. It looks okay. You got the bishop out, the rooks are protected, right? But black's position is just too loose. The knight can come here. You got the fork. That's what happens. King goes to h7. Knight takes d8. So now he gets the exchange back with the better position. Saves the piece and gets another pawn. So we could see Magnus is just totally in dire straits in this position. He has 4 pawns, and he was forced to give back the exchange. And he only has 15 minutes on the clock. Aronian had 42 minutes just cruising along. Knight d5. Again, saving himself queen with queen a7. So after rook d8, e4 opens up the door for this bishop, hits this knight so that the queen can then come to their square after the knight on d5 is forced to move. Of course, Magnus doesn't want to move. He attacks the bishop. Queen d3. See, e takes d5. Queen takes d2, and there's queen c7. So somebody's got to go. All right. Magnus could play a move like queen g5, which of course then just capture with the pawn. And this is what he does. This is the only way to preserve both of these pieces. Okay. D takes c6. Bishop c8. h3, just making sure there will be no back rank mates and preparing the rook's entry into the game. Queen d5. Rook d1. e5. Rook d3. Powerful move. Of course, eyeing the prize. E takes d4, and of course Aronian could care less about that pawn. And now he is preparing his mating assault here. So queen e7 is played. Looking at these squares, check on h4. Bishop f5. And just simply rook g3. Real primitive mating attack. What makes this position so dangerous is not only the mating attack, but the presence of this passed pawn here on c6. It's just too much for black to overcome, even with the extra piece. Bishop g6. And now we can see the idea of queen e7. It allows this check, which forces black to relinquish the protection of the bishop on g6. And Magnus resigned. There's no way that he can protect his bishop. And once the bishop falls, it's just just an easy win for Levon Aronian. These pawns are in excellent position. He's up too much material, and I just want to commend Aronian for playing a great game. A well-prepared game against the world champion, and this is one strategy by White that you probably will not see repeated too much, because it seems that this sacrifice of the exchange here is totally legit, and black just ends up out of play. Even though this may be, of course, there's probably improvements. Like, this position to me is just, it's just not the type of position you want. You playing the black, you're playing the black pieces. Queen way over here on the side, pieces uncoordinated, and the king unprotected. All right. So I hope you enjoyed that analysis. Hope you're enjoying the tournament. And I'll see you guys on the next round. Please like and subscribe.